Hello, everyone. Welcome to Durrett's Take. My name's Durrett. I hope you had a good couple of days, because there's been a lot that's happened recently that I want to go over. So to start off, let's go over some Aaron Rodgers news. When Aaron Rodgers spoke on SportsCenter back on Monday, he basically doubled down on why he's holding out and why he's mad at Green Bay, stuff like that. And apparently, it's not about Jordan Love, like I talked about in my podcast last week. Apparently, he's cool with Jordan Love. He likes him and all that. Um, but his problem is the philosophy. And then he goes on to say the problem is like the people. Now, who is the people? Well, the people he's talking about is the Packers organization, specifically more like people like the GM who drafted Jordan Love without warning Rodgers in advance. And what's interesting is that not only is he fine with sitting down and taking the fines and all that, but now his top five wide receivers are all skipping OTAs and stuff like that as well. So it's a very interesting dynamic here. So it's basically Rodgers doubling down, saying, "Okay, Packers, either gonna fire the GM or you're gonna have to trade me because I'm not coming back." Um, so it'll be interesting to see what happens here. I know the Packers love the GM, so I feel like, and plus with their organization, they're not about that life as far as taking risk and like go and like meeting players' demands, because they shipped Favre out and I know they'll ship Rodgers out at some point. So I think that in the end, Rodgers will get traded because again, you can have Rodgers sit out this whole season before you trade him. But the problem is, like, with that dynamic of a quarterback, your star quarterback doesn't want to be there. His negativity could effectively affect the team, especially, if certain players, sit out with Rodgers. So if I'm Green Bay, I'd trade Rodgers this summer. Don't be a fool, just trade Rodgers. So we've had an interesting NBA playoff so far. We now have gone through two games for each of the playoff matchups so far. So what I want to do is go over each matchup and declare if a certain team, whether they be down or tied in the series, have nothing to worry about, something to worry about, or should be very worried. So let's get started. Um, the Bucks versus the Heat. So if I'm the Heat, I would be very worried. Um, the Bucks making a franchise record of threes in game two is not going to happen every single game. So I feel like more of the games are going to be like game one, where that one was a lot closer and coming out right to the wire type of thing. I don't think a bunch the games the rest of this years are going to be blowouts. But the reason why I'm very worried is because if I'm Miami, the reason why you had success in the bubble was because you had a better bench. Now I know Miami has Dragic coming off the bench, who's still pretty good. But besides that, it's like they don't really have anyone else come off the bench that scares you. Iguodala is not the same anymore. And then Tyler Hero's a shell of himself compared to what he was in the bubble. And that's a big problem. And now with the Bucks, having all the confidence and the fact that Bucks improved their bench throughout this offseason at the trade deadline and stuff like that, it seems like I was wrong. Looks like I think the Bucks are going to potentially sweep, if not gentlemen sweep, the Heat now. Like I feel like this is not even going to be a close series anymore. That's how much watching these two games has kind of like changed my mind on that. Because originally I thought Bucks were going to have to go 7 games to win this, but here it's not the same anymore. The Nuggets versus the Blazers. If I'm the Blazers, I'm somewhat worried. And I still think the Blazers will win the series, but something that is concerning to keep in mind, and it's no shocker, is that the Blazers they just can't play defense. They don't play defense, and that's a big problem because in Game 2, it's like you had a chance, to go up 2-0, make a statement, make the Denver Nuggets worried, and Damian Lillard was going off the second quarter with 8 threes. But in the second half, it's just like you couldn't stop them. This is, again, it was without Jamal Murray, so it's just like it wouldn't surprise me if now it goes 7 games or something like that, just because there might be a few games for Blazers to take off defensively. But that's more of a thing where it's like I feel like you can fix that with just hustle and effort, execution, stuff like that. So that's why I say somewhat worried. For the Nuggets, I'm also just somewhat worried. The big two things that play them in Game 1 is that one. Jokic only had one assist. He wasn't like involved in the team and stuff like that. But that was a different story in game two. But then also the adjustment putting Aaron Gordon on Dame worked, and we'll see if it continues to work through the series or if it just works for that rest of the game. I doubt the Nuggets role players would go off every single game like they did in game two. And without the role players going off, I mean, the Joker and Michael Porter Jr. can't do all alone. So it's like without the other role players going off, I mean, that's why I still feel like Blazers win the series. But again, somewhat worried right now. And then let's say the Nuggets can't win a road game, then I'd become concerned. Nets versus Celtics. If I'm the Celtics, I'm very worried. Celtics got blown out both games, although the first game took longer to get a blowout. And then Tatum, got poked in the eye in the second game, had to sit out. Who knows what his status is? I'm assuming he'll play in game three, but we'll see. And also the Nets' big three, they're gelling right now. And if you're the Celtics, that should scare you. And if it has already scared you so far, just because, they've only played, 7-8 games together in regular season. So you're hoping and baking that the chemistry would be off, but the fact that the chemistry is working just fine already, without Jaylen Brown out, that shows you just got no shot there. And like I predicted before the series starts, my prediction of Nets sweeping the Celtics looks pretty good right now. Suns versus Lakers. If I'm the Lakers, I'm somewhat worried. The fact that CP3 is not 100% helps them, but the fact that CP3 was on the bench for most of the fourth quarter, and it took the final 2 minutes for the Lakers to finally pull away in the fourth quarter. That is alarming. Without CP3 on the floor for that fourth quarter, you should have blown. I know Booker's good and all that, but you should have blown them away. But you didn't. So that'll be interesting, that'll be interesting, a dynamic to see if CP3 has to sit for a long time again. Will you be able to insert your dominance and start blowing them out like you should? And then if you're the Suns, you're very worried. I'm not saying the Suns are very worried, though, because they lost home court advantage. They're a good road team. They can win a road game. That's not my concern. Again, it's about CP3. Is he clearly healthy? And right now, he's not, and I don't think he will be the rest of the series. And without a healthy CP3, Suns have no shot. In fact, if CP3 doesn't get better soon, I think the Lakers can win the next 3 games. Clippers versus Mavs. If I'm the Clippers, I'm very worried. I know Paul George says they're not concerned, and Ty Lue says they're not concerned, but it's a bunch of, baloney. Losing both games at home is just never good. Now, the Mavs aren't that great at home, of teams, so they can be had there, but, and also, the Mavs are a bad free throw shoot team, so if the Clippers, can make them pay for something, that's something they can make them pay for, but, the Clippers are just playing horrible defense that I don't see getting better anytime soon, unless the Mavs, role players are just all of a sudden all going cold, then I feel like this is going to be a pretty fast series. Now, I don't think they can continue to shoot 50% for 3, but even if it's in the mid-high 40s or even low, then it's just, it's going to be game over soon. I'm going to get that fixed if the Clippers want to avoid a sweep. 76ers versus Wizards. If I'm the Wizards, I'm very worried. Westbrook left with injury, and like I predicted, since they're a very bad defensive team, they can't stop Philly for nothing. So expect this to be a quick series like I predicted. Knicks versus Hawks. If I'm the Knicks, I'm very worried. I know you got the win. So you have a split. But the reason why I'm very worried is because Julius Randle has not been performing well so far in these playoffs. And if he continues to have quiet games, they can't rely on D Rose and Alex Burks every single game. Maybe some of the games, but not every single game. They can't carry them for the whole series. So Julius Randle, if he can start showing up, then I'll become less worried. But if he continues to be quiet, then I'll be very worried. If I'm the Hawks, I'm somewhat worried. The reason why I say somewhat is because the only thing that concerns me as of right now is that they are too Trae Young reliant in game one. He got some help, which it was able something that way when it came to the finals fourth quarter. He was just then able to take over, But in game two, he was the one having to orchestrate most everything. So then by the end of game 4, he was tired. He just couldn't do anything. Therefore, that's why the Hawks went almost scoreless for the last 5 minutes of the game. So now the role players can step up, most every single game, then the Hawks should be just fine. And that's what I think will happen. So that's why I always say somewhat worried as of right now. The Jazz versus Grizzlies. So if I'm the Jazz, I'm somewhat worried here. I still think the Jazz won the series. Mitchell looked good. Coming off injury, I was very impressed. I could tell, there are certain aspects of this game as well. It's like I could tell there's a couple points where like he wanted to go up for a dunk, but instead, he just kind of like laid it up there for a layup type of thing. Um, and I could tell some of his jump shots, he's not getting enough jump on it, enough oomph on it like he usually does. And then also with the minutes restriction, like I expect him to get better as the series goes on. The one thing that concerns me now, and this is kind of what's been a problem for like the Wizards and Blazers, but I mean, it's just that the Jazz, like for a top 5 defensive team in the regular season, they are playing horrible defense right now. Morant getting anything he wants, Brooks getting anything he wants, Valanciunas, especially if Valanciunas is being guarded by Favors, getting anything he wants. So this is something like the Clippers, can't stop Luka and can't stop Hardaway Jr. Again, that's what this is kind of remind me of. And basically, the Jazz are looking like they're, instead of winning with good defense, it looks like they're gonna have to score 130 plus and just outscore them each game of series if they want to win, which is not a good recipe. You want to be able to like get a game or two based off your defense, like the Knicks can get a game or two based off their defense. And since they're a top 5 defensive team, I know they can fix this somehow, but they just need to get it fixed sooner rather than later. Because now that you stole game 2, you don't want to give them any momentum back by losing game 3. Now for the Grizzlies, I am somewhat worried. Even though they are performing well offensively, like I just mentioned earlier, they have their own problems of not being good defensively. Like Mitchell in his first game back got everything he wanted. Joe Ingles going off. Bogdanovich, especially going towards the rim, able to give going. Gobert on those pick and rolls thing, couldn't stop him. So if I'm the Grizzlies, that's a concern right there. I mean, also you could say foul trouble as well, because Brooks and Valanciunas both got in foul trouble, in the first half, and that played a big role. Memphis team being down by 20 at the half, but that's always been kind of a constant for them. And as you saw in the fourth quarter, I mean, if they would have played better defense, they would have overcome that. But I feel like if the Memphis Grizzlies can win at least one game at home, then like I said, somewhat worried, not a big deal. But if they lose both games at home, then all of a sudden you got to turn on the panic meter and become very worried. So that's it for my podcast today. Please subscribe to my channel and tell everyone about me. Thank you very much, and y'all have a wonderful weekend. Thank you.